They say grief changes people. In my case, it revealed who people truly were. Especially my sister-in-law, Rebecca. Emma, darling. Rebecca's voice dripped with false sympathy as she swept into my office, James's old office, without knocking. Still playing CEO? How quaint. I looked up from the quarterly reports I'd been reviewing, forcing myself to remain calm. 6 months after James's death, and she still treated me like I was somehow the intruder in my own husband's company. Hello, Rebecca, I said coolly. I don't recall seeing a meeting on my calendar. She laughed, that practiced socialite titter that had always set my teeth on edge. Oh, honey, I don't need an appointment to check on my brother's company. Your late brother's company. I wanted to correct her. The company he left to me. But I'd learned over 15 years of marriage that sometimes silence was the better weapon. Rebecca helped herself to one of the leather chairs facing my desk, crossing her legs in a way that showed off her Louboutin heels. At 45, 5 years my senior, she still dressed like she was competing for a spot on Real Housewives. The board meeting is next week, she said, examining her manicure. I assume you'll be stepping down then? I set down my pen carefully. Excuse me. Well, darling, let's be realistic. She leaned forward, her expression a masterpiece of practiced concern. You've done admirably, keeping James's seat warm these past 6 months. But Sterling Technologies needs real leadership now. Someone who understands the business world. Someone like you? I kept my voice neutral, even as my hand instinctively went to the locket around my neck. The one containing the tiny USB drive that James had given me on our last anniversary. Naturally. She smiled, all perfect teeth and predatory intent. I am a Sterling, after all. The company has been in our family for 3 generations. And let's be honest, Emma. What do you know about running a tech company? You're a housewife who got lucky. Lucky. The word echoed in my head as I thought back to that first dinner, 15 years ago, when James had brought me home to meet his family. I'd been 25 then, fresh out of my MBA program, working as a junior analyst at a competing firm. Rebecca had taken one look at my off-the-rack dress and dismissed me as a gold digger. James always said you were smarter than people gave you credit for, I remarked, watching her preen at the compliment. He said you had a real nose for opportunity. James knew talent when he saw it, she agreed smugly. Which is why I'm sure he would want me to step in now. For the good of the company, of course. Of course. Because everything Rebecca did was for the good of the company. Like the time she'd tried to convince James to sell off our R&D division because it wasn't showing immediate profits. Or the time she'd pushed to outsource our entire manufacturing arm to save costs. James had seen through her schemes, but he'd played along, letting her think she was the clever one. It had been our private joke, watching Rebecca plot and scheme while we quietly built something she couldn't begin to understand. The board might need some convincing, I said thoughtfully. After all, James did leave controlling interest to me. Rebecca waved her hand dismissively. Temporary sentiment, darling. James was sick, not thinking clearly at the end. The board understands that. They know Sterling Technologies needs Sterling leadership. I opened my desk drawer, pulling out a thick folder, one of many I'd prepared for this moment. Speaking of leadership, I've been reviewing some of our older projects. The Singapore initiative, for instance. Do you remember that? Her smile flickered slightly. Singapore? That was ages ago. A failed expansion attempt. Failed. I opened the folder, pretending to consult the documents inside. That's interesting, because according to these records, someone authorized $2.5 million in consulting fees to a company called Apex Solutions? Ring any bells? The color drained from her perfectly bronzed face. Ancient history. The board approved all those expenditures. Did they? Because I can't seem to find any board minutes discussing Apex Solutions. I did, however, find incorporation papers showing that Apex Solutions was registered to one Rebecca Sterling. I looked up, meeting her eyes. Quite a coincidence. You've been digging through old records? Her voice rose sharply. Those files are confidential. I'm the CEO, I reminded her gently. Nothing in this company is confidential from me, including the offshore accounts where those consulting fees ended up. Rebecca stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. You're making accusations you can't prove. Oh, I can prove everything. I patted the folder. This is just one file, Rebecca. One project. Would you like to discuss the others? The Chinese manufacturing deal? The Mexican distribution contract? The mysterious consulting firms that always seemed to pop up whenever Sterling Technologies expanded internationally. "You bitch," she hissed, dropping all pretense of sisterly affection. "You've been planning this, haven't you? All these years, playing the devoted wife, the simple housewife." I touched my locket again, thinking of James's words when he'd given it to me. "Keep this safe, love. Everything you need is inside." 15 years, I said quietly. 15 years of watching you try to undermine your own brother. 15 years of documenting every scheme, every betrayal. Did you really think James didn't know? That we didn't see exactly who you were? James would never. James knew everything. I stood up, my height advantage forcing her to look up at me. "Why do you think he left me controlling interest? Why do you think he made sure I had access to every file, every record, every piece of evidence?" She took a step back, her designer heels wobbling slightly. "The board won't believe you. I'm a Sterling." "Yes, you are. And that's exactly why they'll believe me." I pressed a button on my desk phone. "Sarah, could you please come in?" My assistant entered immediately, carrying another folder. "The board meeting has been moved up to tomorrow morning, Mrs. Sterling. All members have confirmed their attendance." "Thank you, Sarah." I smiled at Rebecca's shocked expression. "Oh, did I forget to mention? We're having an emergency board meeting. Seems there are some serious concerns about historical financial irregularities that need to be addressed." "You can't do this," Rebecca whispered. "I'm his sister. And I'm his wife. The wife who spent 15 years learning this business from the ground up. The wife who worked alongside him while you were skimming millions from company projects. The wife he trusted to protect his legacy." I walked around the desk, enjoying the way she backed away from me. "You called me a housewife who got lucky. Would you like to know what James called me? His secret weapon." The color had completely drained from Rebecca's face. "What do you want?" "Want?" I pretended to consider the question. "I want you to go home, Rebecca. Pack a bag. Take a long vacation. Because after tomorrow's board meeting, you won't be welcome in this building anymore." "You're bluffing," she said, but her voice trembled. "You don't have the nerve." I opened the folder Sarah had brought in, extracting a single photograph. It showed a younger Rebecca shaking hands with a man in front of a Singapore office building. The name Apex Solutions was clearly visible on the door behind them. "Still think I'm bluffing?" She snatched her purse from the chair, hands shaking. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is." I sat back down at my desk. "But don't worry. I'm sure the board will approve a generous severance package. After all, we wouldn't want to tarnish the Sterling name, would we?" As Rebecca stormed out, her Louboutins clicking furiously against the marble floor, I touched my locket one last time. Inside, the USB drive contained everything we'd gathered over 15 years. Every document, every transaction, every piece of evidence showing how Rebecca had systematically tried to steal from her own brother's company. But that was just the beginning. Tomorrow, at the board meeting, I would reveal phase 2 of our plan. The real reason James had spent 15 years preparing me to take over Sterling Technologies. Rebecca thought she was dealing with a housewife who'd gotten lucky. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. The morning of the board meeting, I arrived early to find Rebecca already waiting in the conference room. She wasn't alone. "Mother?" I stopped in the doorway, surprised to see my mother-in-law, Eleanor Sterling, seated at the table. She hadn't set foot in the building since James's funeral. "Emma, dear." Eleanor's voice was as cool and precise as I remembered. "Rebecca tells me you're causing trouble." I smiled, thinking of the USB drive in my locket. "Actually, I'm fixing trouble. Old trouble. Don't be cryptic, dear. It's unbecoming." Eleanor gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit. Let's discuss this like family." Family. The word almost made me laugh. The Sterlings had never considered me family. I was the interloper, the gold digger who'd stolen their precious James. Only James had seen the truth, had understood what I could become. "The board will be here in 30 minutes, I said, remaining standing. "Anything you have to say can be said in front of them." Rebecca smirked. "Mother is here as a majority shareholder. She can remove you as CEO with a single vote." Now I did laugh. "Is that what you told her?" "Oh, Rebecca, you really should have paid more attention to the shareholding structure after James died." Eleanor's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, the boardroom doors opened again. Sarah entered, followed by a stream of men and women in expensive suits, the full Sterling Technologies board of directors. And behind them, Martin. Rebecca's voice rose an octave as our company's longtime accountant shuffled in, carrying a thick portfolio. "What are you doing here?" "Mrs. Sterling, Emma, asked me to prepare a complete financial presentation," Martin said, not meeting Rebecca's eyes. "Including the offshore accounts." Eleanor's head snapped around. "What offshore accounts?" "Perhaps we should begin," I suggested, taking my place at the head of the table, James's old seat. "There's a lot to cover." For the next hour, Martin methodically laid out 15 years of financial manipulation. Shell companies, fake consulting contracts, inflated invoices, all leading back to Rebecca. With each revelation, Eleanor's face grew paler, while Rebecca's grew redder. "This is ridiculous," Rebecca finally exploded. "You can't prove any of this." I touched my locket. "Actually, I can. James kept records of everything. Every meeting you had with those fake consultants, every wire transfer, every document you thought you'd destroyed." I connected the USB drive to the boardroom's display system, including videos. The screen lit up with footage of a younger Rebecca, meeting with various suspicious-looking men in hotel lobbies and restaurants. In each clip, she was clearly visible, clearly recognizable, and clearly engaging in corporate espionage. "Turn it off," Eleanor whispered. "Just turn it off." I did, but not before everyone in the room had seen enough. The board members were whispering among themselves, their expressions a mixture of shock and anger. "Why?" Eleanor asked, turning to her daughter. "We gave you everything. Position, power, money. Why steal from your own family?" "Because it wasn't enough," Rebecca shot back. "James got everything, the company, the trust fund, the legacy. I got to be the pretty daughter who married well and kept her mouth shut. Until now." She turned to me, eyes blazing. "But you made one mistake, little housewife. Mother still holds majority shares. One vote from her and you're out." I shook my head slowly. "That's your mistake, Rebecca. You never bothered to read James's final amendments to the company structure. Eleanor hasn't been majority shareholder for 5 years." "What?" both Sterling women said in unison. I nodded to Sarah, who distributed a new set of documents to the board. 5 years ago, James began restructuring the company's ownership. The majority shares were transferred to a blind trust. A trust that would only activate upon his death. Understanding began to dawn on Eleanor's face. "The cancer." He knew about the cancer back then. "Yes." I felt tears threatening but pushed them back. "He knew he was sick long before he told any of you. And he knew what would happen to the company if he didn't plan carefully." "The trust," Rebecca said slowly. "Who controls it?" I stood up, finally ready to reveal what James and I had spent 15 years preparing for. "The trust is controlled by a partnership. A partnership between Sterling Technologies and Thompson Innovations." The room erupted in chaos. Thompson Innovations was our biggest competitor, the company I'd worked for when I first met James. The company that had tried to buy Sterling Technologies multiple times over the years. "You sold us out?" Rebecca screamed. "To Thompson?" "No," I said calmly. "I am Thompson." The silence that followed was deafening. 15 years ago, I continued, my father sent me to analyze Sterling Technologies for a potential hostile takeover. That's when I met James. We fell in love, yes, but we also saw an opportunity. A way to merge 2 great companies without destroying either one. "Your father," Eleanor said faintly. "Michael Thompson is your father?" I nodded. James and I spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Learning each other's companies, aligning our technologies, waiting for the right time. He knew the cancer would take him, but he made sure everything was in place first. "The housewife," Rebecca whispered. "All this time we thought." "You thought what you wanted to think," I agreed. "You saw a young woman who'd caught your brother's eye, who played the devoted wife, who stayed in the background while you plotted and schemed. You never bothered to look deeper." I pressed another button, and the boardroom screen lit up again, this time with projections showing the potential growth from merging Sterling and Thompson Technologies. The board members leaned forward, their earlier shock turning to interest as they saw the numbers. "This merger will triple our market share overnight," I explained. "Our combined R&D departments are already years ahead of the competition. And yes, Rebecca, that includes all those projects you tried to shut down because they weren't showing immediate profits." "You can't do this," Rebecca protested weakly. "The Thompson girl, playing grieving widow, secretly planning to steal our company." "Steal?" I laughed. "I'm saving it. From you, from your greed, from your small-minded vision of what this company could be." I turned to the board. The merger documents are in your packets. As you can see, we're not just combining companies, we're revolutionizing the entire industry. One by one, the board members began nodding as they reviewed the proposals. Even Eleanor, after a long moment studying the documents, looked up with something like respect in her eyes. "James knew," she said quietly. "All along, he knew exactly what you were." "Yes," I agreed. "He knew I was like him, someone who could see the bigger picture, who could build something lasting. Not just protect a legacy, but create a new one." Rebecca stood up so abruptly her chair toppled over. "I'll fight this. I'll go to the press, tell them everything." "Tell them what?" I asked calmly. "That you spent 15 years embezzling from your brother's company while his wife, the secret Thompson heiress, gathered evidence against you? That might not be the story you want in the headlines." She stared at me, finally understanding the completeness of her defeat. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the boardroom. Eleanor watched her go, then turned back to me. "I underestimated you, Emma. We all did." "That was the plan," I said softly. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of signatures and congratulations. By the end of the day, Sterling Thompson Technologies was officially born, with me as CEO and a clear mandate for transformation. That evening, alone in James's, my office, I opened the locket one last time. Behind the USB drive was a tiny photo of James and me on our wedding day, both of us laughing at some forgotten joke. "We did it, love," I whispered. "Everything you planned, everything we built together, it's really happening." My phone buzzed with a text from my father. James would be proud, both of the company and of you. I smiled, thinking of the future we'd spent 15 years preparing for. Rebecca had thought she was dealing with a housewife who'd gotten lucky. The board had thought they were dealing with a grieving widow. None of them had realized they were dealing with someone who'd learned from the best. Both a Sterling and a Thompson, trained by two of the greatest business minds of their generation. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, I sat in the quiet of my office, watching the city lights twinkle below, and savored the victory that had been 15 years in the making. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving people wrong. It's proving your late husband right. Epilogue. 1 year later, Sterling Thompson Technologies unveiled a revolutionary new tech platform that changed the industry overnight. Our stock price tripled, and the merger was hailed as one of the most successful in corporate history. Rebecca eventually tried to write a tell-all book about the corporate conspiracy that had robbed her of her birthright. No publisher would touch it, partly because of our lawyers, but mostly because no one believed a housewife could have orchestrated such an elaborate plan. Eleanor joined our charitable foundation, focusing on women in technology. Last month, she even apologized for underestimating me all those years. "James always said you were extraordinary," she admitted. "I should have listened. As for me, I keep James's picture in my locket now, rather than the USB drive. I don't need it anymore. Its contents are safely archived in the company's records, a reminder of how underestimating people can be the costliest mistake of all. The press still sometimes refers to me as the housewife CEO who inherited her husband's company. I don't bother correcting them. After all, perception can be the most powerful weapon of all. Just ask Rebecca. James and I had a saying, the best long-term plans are the ones no one sees coming. 15 years was a long time to wait, but some things like justice, vindication, and true love are worth planning for. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.